The court paradox, the student who sued his teacher. A law student found the perfect loophole. As long as he never practices law, he legally never has to pay for law school. But when his teacher sues him to collect the debt, something impossible happens. Both of them are logically bulletproof. The teacher argues, if I win this lawsuit, the court orders you to pay. But if I lose, you've won your first case, which means our contract says you pay. Either way, the money is mine. But the student's defense is equally perfect. If I win, the court says I owe nothing. If I lose, I still haven't won my first case yet, so the contract doesn't apply. Either way, I keep my money. The judge is stuck. He has to rule one way or the other. But no matter which way he rules, both men get exactly what they want, which is logically impossible. This is the court paradox, and it's been puzzling the greatest minds for over 2,000 years. It reveals something most people never realize. Two people can both be completely right and completely wrong at the same time. And once you see this pattern, you'll start noticing it everywhere. In arguments, in decisions, in the way we all try to make sense of reality. Tonight, you'll explore 30 of these impossible puzzles. Each one will show you how logic can trap us, how certainty can deceive us, and how the smartest reasoning can lead to the strangest conclusions. But here's the thing. You don't need to solve them. You don't need to stay awake for all of them. These paradoxes are designed to let your mind wander, to create space for sleep to arrive naturally. So just listen, let the ideas wash over you, and drift off whenever you're ready. Now let's go back to where this all started, to ancient Greece, where two brilliant men trapped themselves in a logical prison neither could escape. In ancient Greece, there was a young law student named Protagoras who struck a deal with his master. The arrangement seemed perfectly fair. He would pay for his education only after winning his first court case. It was a bet on the quality of the instruction and a safety net for the student's future. Both men shook hands, confident in their bargain. But something unexpected happened. After graduating, Protagoras never took a case. He stayed completely silent, never entering a courtroom, never representing a client. Perhaps he realized that by never practicing law, he might never have to fulfill his end of the bargain. Months turned into years, and still, no payment came. Frustrated and feeling cheated, the teacher finally decided to take action. He would sue his own student for the tuition. This created an impossible trap, a logical prison neither man could escape. In the courtroom, the air grows thick with a logical fog. The teacher stands before the judge and argues with confidence. If I win this case, the court will order my student to pay me what he owes. But if I lose this case, then my student will have won his first court case, which means our contract requires him to pay. Your Honor, either way, the money is mine. The student rises to respond, and his counterargument is equally flawless. The unexpected hanging, the prisoner who predicted the surprise. A judge tells a prisoner he will be hanged at noon on a weekday next week, but with one chilling condition. The execution will be a total surprise. The prisoner will not know which day it is until the hangman knocks on his cell door. The prisoner, a master of logic, sits in his cell and begins to smile as he calculates his safety. He believes that language promises us precision, but he is about to learn that reality prefers a different kind of transition, one that is so gradual and seamless that it resists precise definition. He reasons that it cannot be Friday. If he is still alive on Thursday evening, Friday is the only day left, so the hanging wouldn't be a surprise. Therefore, Friday is out. But if Friday is impossible, then Thursday becomes the new final day. If he survives until Wednesday, he'll know Thursday is the day, meaning it wouldn't be a surprise either. One by one, like a row of falling dominoes, he eliminates every day of the week until he is mathematically certain he cannot be hanged. He goes to sleep convinced he has outsmarted death itself, believing he has found a sharp line where none exists. Then, on Wednesday at noon, the hangman knocks. The prisoner is completely, utterly surprised. This paradox reveals an unsettling truth. Most of our concepts don't have razor-sharp edges. You can prove something is impossible on paper, yet the world is built on transformations that resist precise definition. It shows the fuzzy edges of our experiences, where the certainty of a logical proof dissolves into the gentle ambiguity of the present moment. Sometimes the truth lies not in the absolute boundary, but in the recognition that the world is more fluid and interconnected than our need for clear definition suggests. We are often surprised not because the logic failed, but because we forgot that the map is not the territory. This prisoner thought he could preserve his life through the sheer power of reason, maintaining his identity as the man who survived. But this brings us to a deeper, more haunting question. What is it that actually survives? If we can't even predict the day of our death, can we even be sure who it is that is living? To understand this, we must step away from the prison and into the mist of a lightning-struck marsh. The identity mystery, the swampman who stole your life. Picture yourself walking through a quiet, fog-shrouded marsh during a violent lightning storm. A sudden, blinding bolt strikes you, instantly vaporizing every molecule of your body. In that same microsecond, another bolt hits a nearby heap of swamp chemicals, accidentally rearranging them into an exact physical duplicate of you. This swampman is identical down to the last atom, sharing the same proud history you once claimed as your own. Materially, nothing of your original body remains, yet the duplicate stands there, ready to take your place. The swampman has your memories, your childhood scars, and your favorite songs hummed under his breath. He walks out of the marsh, enters your home, kisses your spouse, and continues the project you started yesterday. To the outside world, nothing has changed. Your friends still call him by your name, they see the same smile and hear the same jokes. But we must ask the question, is he really you? If identity is a fixed anchor dropped in time, then you are gone. But if identity is an ongoing story we carry forward, perhaps the pattern is enough to keep you alive. This forces us to consider our own bodies as we listen to these words. Your cells are constantly dying and being replaced. The body you inhabited as a child shares almost no material with the body you inhabit now. So, are you the physical matter, or are you the thread of memory that connects your past to your present? The swampman whispers a profound truth. Perhaps what makes something what it is lies not in its material substance, but in the pattern, the function, and the continuous thread of existence that flows through time. You are both the vessel that is maintained through change and the one rebuilt from the wisdom of your yesterdays. But even if we can define who we are, we struggle to define how we should act together. Just as the swampman is a collection of parts trying to form a whole, our society is a collection of individuals trying to build a future. And sometimes, the very virtues that make us good individuals, like the desire to save and protect, are the very things that lead to our collective downfall. The paradox of thrift, the village that saved until it was poor. Imagine a small, bustling village where everyone decides to become more responsible at the exact same time. Fearing a long, cold winter or a sudden economic downturn, every family makes a pact to stop spending on luxuries and start saving every coin they earn. On the surface, this seems like the height of wisdom, the pursuit of stability and a shield against the unknown. They are trying to protect the conditions where they can thrive, much like a gardener tending to a private plot, ensuring every drop of water is kept for their own soil. However, the logic of the individual fails the logic of the group. Because no one is buying bread, the baker loses his income and can no longer pay his assistants. Because the baker isn't buying tools, the blacksmith goes hungry. Because the blacksmith isn't buying clothes, the weaver's shop closes. Soon, the entire village is plunged into a deep poverty precisely because everyone tried to be safe. Their attempt to create perfect safety created a profound vulnerability that none of them saw coming. It is a mathematical reality that reveals how our social connections are subtly distorted by our fear of lack. This reveals that true stability isn't the absence of movement. It's the ability to move gracefully with change. When we try to eliminate all risk and uncertainty, we often create the very fragility we fear. Resources, like water, only provide life when they flow and are shared. The attempt to shield ourselves from every possible harm can leave us unprepared for the inevitable difficulties of life. Sometimes being tolerant of economic risk is a necessity for survival, ensuring that the garden of our society doesn't become a place where everything is choked out by the fear of loss. We are all parts of a larger machine, and when one gear stops to protect itself, the whole mechanism grinds to a halt. This village is a tiny mirror of a much larger silence. If a small community can collapse by looking too far inward, what of the vast community of the universe? We look at the stars and expect to see a bustling economy of life, yet we are met with a stillness that suggests that somewhere in the grand logic of the cosmos, something has gone quiet. The Fermi Paradox, the galaxy that was too quiet. Look up at the starlit sky on a clear night and consider the sheer, staggering numbers. There are billions of stars in our galaxy, and most of them are orbited by planets. Mathematically, there should be millions of Earth-like worlds out there. Many of these planets are billions of years older than ours, meaning any civilization there would have had an infinite corridor of time to expand and build magnificent structures across the stars. Space should extend forever with the signals of others. The universe should be teeming with life and noise. It should be a crowded room where there is always room for one more. And yet, when we point our most sensitive ears toward the heavens, we hear nothing but a final silence. This is the great mystery. Where is everybody? If the universe is infinite, why does it feel so scarce? This paradox suggests that our perceptions of reality might be based on a mathematical illusion rather than the truth of what is out there. It's like standing in a crowd and noticing only the tallest people. The rest remain invisible to our narrow perspective. Are we the first to ever wake up in this vast cosmic hotel? Are we the last survivors of a forgotten era? Or is reality like a state of superposition, where the answer is both yes and no, until the moment we finally open the box and observe the truth? The silence of the stars reminds us that existence might be more fluid and less determined than our waking minds assume. It invites us to recognize the abundance that already surrounds us on our own small planet, even while we wonder if we are the only consciousness capable of resting beneath these starlit skies. Perhaps the answer isn't that they aren't there, but that we aren't looking for them in the right way. Perhaps the silence of the universe is a reflection of our own inner search. We look for life in the stars just as we look for happiness in our achievements, always reaching for something distant, something out there. But in doing so, we often fall into the final trap, the realization that the harder we chase the light, the more we find ourselves sitting in the dark. Meno's paradox, the man who couldn't search for truth. Imagine a seeker of wisdom who decides to dedicate his life to finding the ultimate truth. He packs his bags, leaves his home, and begins to wander. But as he reaches the first crossroads, he stops. A paralyzing thought takes hold. How will he know when he has found what he's looking for? If he already knows what the truth looks like, then he has no need to search for it. But if he doesn't know what it looks like, he could walk right past it, or even stand directly on top of it, and never realize it was the goal of his journey. This is the trap of the seeker. It suggests that all learning is either impossible or unnecessary. It's like trying to find a specific grain of sand on a vast beach without knowing its color, shape, or weight. If the truth is something entirely new, we have no hook in our minds to catch it. If it's something familiar, we aren't really discovering it. We're just remembering it. This paradox challenges our very definition of progress. We like to think of life as a ladder we climb, gaining new heights of understanding with every step. But Meno suggests we might just be walking in a fog, hoping that our recognition of the truth isn't just a trick of the light. It forces us to ask, is knowledge something we gather from the outside, or is it a light that was already burning inside us, waiting for the right moment to be uncovered? Perhaps the search isn't about finding something new, but about refining our ability to recognize what has been there all along. It's the realization that the map and the destination are often the same thing, viewed from different angles. But even if we find the truth, we often find ourselves unable to speak it clearly. Sometimes, the more we try to be honest, the more we end up entangled in a lie, not because we intended to deceive, but because the very act of stating a truth can create a contradiction that swallows the meaning of our words. Fitch's paradox, the secret that everyone knew. Imagine a world where every truth is capable of being known. It sounds like a utopia of information, a place where no mystery is too deep and no secret is safe forever. We believe that if something is true, then it is knowable. But logic suggests a terrifying counter-truth. If every truth is knowable, then it follows that every truth is already known. This would mean that there are no unknown truths, no secrets waiting in the dark, no undiscovered laws of physics, no private thoughts that haven't been cataloged. But we know this isn't the case. We know there are things that are true but will never be known by a human mind. Consider a leaf falling in a forest where no one will ever walk. It is a fact that the leaf fell, but that fact is a secret that the universe keeps to itself. The moment we try to bridge the gap between what is true and what is known, we find that we either have to accept a universe where privacy is impossible or a universe where our logic is fundamentally limited. This paradox touches the hem of the infinite. It suggests that the universe is vast enough to hold truths that actively resist our observation. It's like the final silence we hear in the stars, a space that is full of information that we simply aren't equipped to hear. It humbles the human ego, reminding us that while we are masters of what we see, we are guests in a reality that is mostly composed of things we will never understand. If the universe is full of secrets we can never know, then perhaps the ultimate secret is the one we carry within us. We have spent this journey looking at the loops of the world, the stars, and the laws of the village. But as we reach the end of our path, we find the most profound paradox of all, the one that occurs when the mind tries to look at itself and finds nothing but a blank page. The service recovery paradox, the brand that grew from its own failure. Imagine you walk into a high-end restaurant expecting perfection. The evening begins flawlessly, but then the waiter slips and spills a full glass of deep red wine directly onto your lap. In that single, messy moment, your satisfaction drops to zero. You feel the cold dampness of the wine and the heat of embarrassment rising in your chest. But then, something strange happens. The manager rushes over, offers a sincere, heartfelt apology, personally helps you clean up, pays for your dry cleaning, and gives you the entire meal for free, along with a bottle of their finest vintage to take home. Strangely, at the end of the night, you feel more loyal to this restaurant than you would have if the wine had never been spilled at all. This is the service recovery paradox. It suggests that a failure, followed by a masterful, empathetic recovery, creates a deeper emotional bond than flawlessness ever could. It's as if the crack in the experience allowed the light of genuine human connection to shine through more brightly than a polished, mechanical perfection ever could. This reveals a profound truth about human nature. We don't actually crave perfection. We crave proof that we are valued when things go wrong. A perfect system is cold and predictable, but a system that breaks and then fixes itself feels alive and trustworthy. It reminds us that our mistakes aren't just obstacles to be avoided. They are unique opportunities to redefine our relationships and prove our character. In the garden of your own life, consider the spilled wine moments. Perhaps the times you failed and then made it right are the very moments that define the strength of your story. But while a single failure can lead to growth in a restaurant, in the wild world of nature, the opposite can happen. Sometimes, providing too much of a good thing, too much support, too much abundance, can lead to a silence far more devastating than a simple mistake. This is the paradox of the garden that grew so well it eventually choked itself out. The paradox of enrichment, the forest that died of too much life. Imagine a vibrant, clear lake, teeming with silver fish and surrounded by lush greenery. To help the lake, you decide to pour in a massive amount of high-quality nutrients, the best fertilizers in the world, thinking that more food will surely lead to more life. At first, it seems to work. The algae blooms in a brilliant neon explosion of green, but the growth is too fast, too aggressive, and too hungry. The algae forms a thick carpet across the surface, blocking the sun from the plants below. When those plants die, their decomposition sucks all the oxygen out of the water, and suddenly the entire lake goes silent. Every fish, every living thing, vanishes in a matter of days. This is the paradox of enrichment. It's the terrifying realization that increasing the food supply or the resources of an ecosystem can actually make it less stable and lead to total collapse. It's a powerful warning against the more is always better philosophy that dominates our modern lives. When we saturate a system, whether it's a lake, a business, or a brain, with too many resources, we often destroy the delicate checks and balances that kept it alive and healthy. This happens in our own lives too. When we have too many choices, too much information, or too much unearned comfort, we often find ourselves paralyzed or suffocated by the abundance. We become like the lake, rich in nutrients but poor in oxygen. It teaches us that the water of life requires a certain level of scarcity and struggle to remain fresh. True health isn't found in the maximum amount of resources you can hoard, but in the perfect, rhythmic balance of having just enough. If nature can be overwhelmed by too much physical life, our minds can be equally overwhelmed by the way we try to label the world. We try to name every star, define every number, and categorize every thought, but eventually, we reach a point where our language simply runs out of room for the things it's trying to describe. The Fermi Paradox, the numbers that refuse to be defined. Consider the English language. It is vast and expressive, but it is ultimately finite. There are only so many words we can use. Now think about the smallest positive integer that cannot be defined in fewer than 13 words. Stop for a second. Read that again. I just defined that number using exactly 12 words. The smallest positive integer not definable in fewer than 12 words. By defining it, I have broken the rule of its own existence. This is the Fermi Paradox, a glitch in the matrix of human language and logic. It shows that our words are like a net with holes in it. We try to catch the truth, but the truth is often the very thing that slips through the gaps. It reveals that there are unnameable things in the universe that exist just beyond the reach of our descriptions. We spend our lives trying to label our feelings, our identities, and our world with absolute precision. We say, I am this, or life is that. But the Fermi Paradox reminds us that the moment we define something, we limit it. There is always a part of reality that refuses to be captured by a sentence. Like the blank page we discussed earlier, the most profound truths are often the ones that cannot be spoken without creating a contradiction. It suggests that the map of our language will never be large enough to cover the territory of our reality. There will always be a number, a feeling, or a truth that stands outside the fence of our definitions, inviting us to stop nomming the world and start simply experiencing it. This struggle to value the world through words extends into how we value the world through gold and necessity. We often find ourselves in a marketplace where the things we need to survive are worth nothing, and the things that serve no purpose are worth everything. The value paradox, the shop where water is free and diamonds are expensive. Imagine you are lost in a scorching, endless desert. You haven't had a single drop of liquid in 3 days. Your throat is like sandpaper, and your vision is beginning to blur. You stumble upon a small, miraculous shop. On one shelf is a massive, sparkling diamond the size of a fist. On the other shelf is a simple, cold glass of water. In this moment, you would give 1,000 diamonds for that one glass of water. Yet back in the city, water is nearly free and often wasted, while diamonds cost a fortune and are guarded behind thick glass. This is the paradox of value, or the diamond water paradox. It exposes the massive disconnect between usefulness and market price. We live in a world that often ignores the water of our lives, the air we breathe, the health of our bodies, the quiet peace of a morning, because they are abundant and available. Instead, we obsess over the diamonds, the status symbols, the luxuries, and the rare accolades that have no real power to save us when the desert sun begins to beat down. It's a reminder that we are often poor in the midst of plenty. We hoard things that have no value in the desert of a crisis, and we neglect the things that truly keep our hearts beating. As you listen to this, ask yourself, are you chasing diamonds while your glass of water is sitting empty? True wealth is the recognition that the most valuable things in the universe are often the ones we take for granted because they are already here, free and flowing. But as we improve our ability to get what we want, as we become more efficient at turning water into power or coal into heat, we find a final, cruel twist. The better we get at using a resource, the more of it we end up consuming. Our progress becomes the engine of our own exhaustion. The Jevons Paradox, the civilization that improved until it collapsed. In the 1800s, an economist named William Jevons noticed something strange. New steam engines were being built that used coal much more efficiently than ever before. People assumed this would lead to a decrease in coal consumption. After all, we needed less coal to do the same work. But the opposite happened. Because the engines were more efficient, coal became a cheaper and more attractive source of power for everyone. This led to more engines being built across the world, and coal consumption skyrocketed. This is the Jevons Paradox. It is the shadow of efficiency. Every time we find a way to save time or energy, we don't actually save it. We just use the surplus to do more things, which ends up consuming even more of our lives. Think of your smartphone. It was designed to make communication more efficient, yet we spend more time than ever communicating and feeling exhausted by the weight of it. We are a civilization that is improving itself into a state of total depletion. We are running faster and faster on a treadmill that we ourselves built, convinced that the next efficiency or the next life hack will finally give us the rest we crave. But as the paradox of hedonism teaches us, rest doesn't come from optimization. It comes from the ability to stop the engine altogether. It invites us to consider that the most efficient way to live might not be to do more with less, but to simply do less. The paradox of fiction, the tears shed for the non-existent. Think back to the last time you sat in a dark theater or curled up with a well-worn book and felt your heart shatter. You felt genuine hot tears tracing paths down your cheeks. You felt a lump in your throat and a deep, aching grief for a character who was suffering. But here is the logical trap. You knew with absolute certainty that the person on the screen was just an actor following a script. You knew the death you witnessed was just pixels and light or ink on a page. Why does the human heart bleed for something it knows, for a fact, does not exist? This is the paradox of fiction. It suggests that our emotional systems are fundamentally disconnected from our rational beliefs. We can logically dismiss a story as make-believe, yet our nervous system reacts as if the stakes are life and death. It reveals that the mind doesn't just process cold facts, it processes meaning. To the subconscious, a powerful story is a simulation of reality that is just as true as the air we breathe. It shows us that we live in two worlds simultaneously, the physical world of matter and the invisible world of the imagination. This paradox proves that we are creatures who require stories to survive. We use them as safe laboratories to navigate the complexities of our own emotions without the real-world consequences. When you cry for a fictional hero, you aren't just crying for them. You are crying for the parts of yourself that their story has finally allowed you to see. It is a bridge between the blank page of potential and the lived experience of being human. It reminds us that truth isn't always something you can touch. Sometimes, it's something you can only feel. But our relationship with these fake emotions goes even deeper into the shadows. Not only do we cry for what isn't there, but we often go out of our way to seek out the very things that make us feel bad, finding a strange, haunting comfort in the darkness of the human experience. The paradox of tragedy, the soul that craves its own heartbreak. In our daily lives, We do everything in our power to avoid pain, fear, and sadness. We spend billions of dollars on comfort, safety, and distraction. And yet, we will pay a premium to sit in a room and watch a story specifically designed to make us feel miserable. We listen to sad songs on repeat when our hearts are already breaking. We seek out the soul that craves its own heartbreak, voluntarily diving into stories of loss, betrayal, and death. Why would a rational being seek out negative emotions? This is the paradox of tragedy. One explanation is that art provides a safe harbor for the feelings we are too afraid to face in our own lives. In the real world, grief is messy, chaotic, and terrifying because it has no clear end. But in a song or a film, that same grief is transformed into something beautiful and structured. It has a beginning, a middle, and a resolution. It is contained within the art. Through tragedy, we experience a catharsis, a literal purging of the soul that leaves us feeling lighter. This paradox suggests that we don't actually want to avoid sadness. We want to transform it. We want to take the raw, jagged pain of existence and turn it into something that has rhythm and meaning. It is the ultimate form of service recovery. The beauty isn't in the absence of the wound, but in the way the wound is finally acknowledged and tended to. It reminds us that to be fully alive is to embrace the entire spectrum of light and dark, realizing that the shadows are what give the light its depth. This desire for a controlled experience of intensity also explains why we can enjoy a thriller even when we know the hero is going to make it out alive. We are drawn to the edge of the cliff, even when we know exactly where the safety net is hidden. The paradox of suspense, the hero who dies 1,000 times. Imagine you are watching your favorite classic thriller for the 10th time. You know every line of dialogue. You know exactly when the killer is hiding behind the shower curtain. You know precisely how the hero escapes at the very last microsecond. And yet, as the music swells, your heart still begins to race. Your palms sweat. You feel the same suspense that gripped you the very first time you saw it. But how can you be in suspense about an outcome that is already a fixed part of your memory? This is the paradox of suspense. It challenges the common belief that uncertainty is the only source of tension. It suggests that when we are truly immersed in a story, we enter a state of functional forgetting. We choose to live in the present moment of the characters, intentionally ignoring our knowledge of the future. We allow ourselves to believe in the possibility of failure even when the script has been set in stone for decades. It shows that the human mind is capable of living in two different timelines at once. This reveals a profound truth about how we navigate our own lives. We often treat our futures as if they are fixed, worrying about outcomes as if they are inevitable and inescapable. But the paradox of suspense shows that we have the power to live inside the scene. We can find intensity, meaning, and excitement in the present moment, even when the broader plot of our lives feels predictable. It is a quiet invitation to stop skipping to the end of the book and start feeling the actual weight of the page you are currently turning. Yet, even when we master the art of living in the present, we often find ourselves haunted by a different kind of ghost, the pursuit of a happiness that seems to disappear the moment we try to name it or hold it still. The paradox of hedonism, the ghost of happiness. We are told from birth that the goal of life is to be happy. We chase joy like a rare, elusive diamond, convinced that if we just find the right career, the right partner, or the right level of success, we will finally arrive at a state of permanent contentment. We optimize our schedules, our diets, and our relationships to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. But the paradox of the ghost of happiness is that the more directly you pursue it, the further away it drifts. This is the paradox of hedonism. It is the realization that happiness is a shy emotion. It vanishes the moment it is made the center of attention. If you go to a party with the sole intention of having the most fun possible, you will likely have a miserable time, constantly checking your internal barometer to see if you've reached your goal. Happiness is not a destination you can reach or a machine you can optimize. Instead, it is a byproduct, a ghost that only appears when your mind is fixed on something else entirely. True contentment emerges when you are lost in a deep conversation, captivated by a difficult task, or serving someone other than yourself. It's about recognizing that the world is built on movement, not static achievements. As you let go of the day, notice how peace comes not through the effort of trying to be peaceful, but through the release of the need to feel any specific way at all. Happiness finds you only when you stop demanding that it show up and start simply engaging with the life you are already living. This elusive nature of truth and feeling brings us to the limits of our very language. We try to name the things that matter most to us, but we find that the most profound mysteries of existence are the ones that can only be defined by what they are not. Bhartrhari's paradox, the mystery that could only be named by silence. There is an ancient linguistic puzzle that asks us to consider a seemingly simple sentence. This thing is unnameable. The moment those words leave your lips, you have fallen into a trap. By calling the thing unnameable, you have given it a name. You have categorized it, defined it, and placed it within the fence of your language. By trying to describe the very limit of your communication, you have accidentally pushed your language beyond its own borders, creating a logical knot that can never be untied. This is Bhartrhari's paradox. It serves as a stark reminder that the most profound parts of our existence, the feeling of absolute awe, the depth of true love, the sheer mystery of our own consciousness, are things that words can only point toward but never fully capture. When we try to name a mystery, the mystery often evaporates, replaced by a cold, dry definition. It's like trying to catch a reflection in a pool of water. The moment you reach out to touch it, the ripples of your own hand destroy the image you were seeking. This paradox invites us to embrace what philosophers call the final silence. It suggests that the most important truths of your life don't need to be explained, defended, or even spoken. They simply need to be felt. As you move toward rest, recognize that you don't need a label for your soul or a definition for your peace. Some things are beautiful precisely because they stay in the shadows of our understanding, safe from the limitations of our vocabulary. To name the mystery is to lose it. To sit in silence is to finally know it. Polanyi's paradox, the man who knew how but didn't know why. Think for a moment about a skill you possess, something so deeply ingrained that you do it without a second thought. It could be something as simple as riding a bicycle, maintaining your balance as the world rushes by, or as complex as recognizing a friend's face in a crowd of thousands within a fraction of a second. If I were to hand you a pen and ask you to write down every physical rule, every calculation of gravity, every subtle curve of the jawline, and every micro-expression that allows you to perform these tasks, you would find it impossible. You know how to do them perfectly, yet you cannot say why or how you know. This is Polanyi's paradox, famously summarized by the philosopher Michael Polanyi. We know more than we can tell. It suggests that human knowledge is not just a collection of facts we can upload into a database. It is a deep, tacit understanding that lives in our muscles, our intuition, and the dark corners of our subconscious. It is a form of wisdom that exists entirely without words. In our modern age, where we try to automate and digitize every aspect of our lives, this paradox reminds us that there is a ghost in the machine, a spark of human awareness and embodied experience that cannot be reduced to an algorithm or a set of instructions. You are a repository of millions of years of evolutionary knowing that doesn't need a manual to function. This paradox invites you to trust the parts of yourself that don't speak in sentences. It suggests that your most powerful tools are often the ones you don't even know you're using. When you face a difficult decision or a complex problem, remember that your silent intuition is often drawing from a well of knowledge far deeper than your conscious mind can perceive. You are more than the sum of the data you've collected. You are the living embodiment of a wisdom that defies description. But if our internal knowledge is a mystery that defies words, the external world of logic and mathematics is even stranger. We assume that if we follow a simple set of rules, we will arrive at a sensible result. But sometimes, a simple game of chance can lead us into a garden of infinite promises that no human bank could ever hope to pay. St. Petersburg Paradox, the coin that promised infinity. Imagine I offer you a game of chance. The rules are simple. I will toss a coin. If it's heads on the first flip, I give you $2. If it's tails, I toss it again and the prize doubles to $4. If it's tails again, it doubles to 8, then 16, then 32, and so on. You win the total accumulated prize whenever the first heads finally appears. Now here is the mathematical twist. The expected value of this game is literally infinite. According to pure logic, you should be willing to pay every cent you own, and even go into debt, just to play this game once, because the potential reward is limitless. Yet in reality, no sane person would pay more than $20 or $30 to play. This is the St. Petersburg Paradox. It exposes a massive, gaping rift between mathematical truth and human rationality. It shows that our minds are fundamentally built to handle the finite, the tangible, and the probable, not the infinite. When we encounter a loop that promises infinity, our intuition doesn't just stumble, it completely breaks down. It reveals that we don't make decisions based on cold calculations, but on a sense of utility and the reality of our own limits. This paradox invites you to look at where else in your life you might be chasing infinite rewards, the perfect career, the endless accumulation of wealth, or the total happiness. We often sacrifice the certain $2 of today, the small present joys, for the mathematical ghost of an infinite tomorrow that may never arrive. It is a profound reminder that while the universe may be infinite, our lives are lived in the beautiful, precious, and fragile space of the finite. True wisdom lies in knowing when the prize in your hand is worth more than the infinity in the air. This struggle with the infinite doesn't just happen in our wallets, it happens in the very fabric of time and motion. We can build a lamp that switches on and off, but if we speed up that process toward the edge of infinity, we find ourselves standing in a darkness that defies the basic laws of physics. Thomson's lamp, the lamp that never stayed on. Imagine a lamp with a simple toggle switch. You turn it on for 1 minute, then you turn it off for half a minute, then on for a quarter minute and off for an eighth. You keep having the time with every click, faster and faster, your hand becoming a blur of motion. As you approach the 2-minute mark, you have toggled the switch an infinite number of times. Now ask yourself, at exactly the 2-minute mark, is the lamp on or is it off? There is no logical, mathematical, or physical answer. This is Thomson's lamp, a supertask paradox that reveals how our concepts of time and motion are just convenient approximations. It suggests that at the extremes of reality, the very fast, the very small, or the very distant, our logic begins to flicker and fail. It's a reminder that the stable world we see is just a thin, calm layer of ice on top of a churning, impossible sea of the infinite. We like to think of our lives as a series of clear on and off moments, success or failure, awake or asleep, beginning or end. But Thomson's lamp suggests that the most profound parts of existence happen in the flicker. We are always in transition, always moving between states, and perhaps the goal of life isn't to find out if the lamp is on or off at the end of the road. Perhaps the goal is to appreciate the light it gives while it's still toggling, and to recognize that the final silence at the 2-minute mark is not a failure of the lamp, but a limit of our ability to measure the light. If our sense of time can be shattered by a simple switch, then our basic perception of color and property isn't safe either. We assume that a green leaf is green because it has a fixed identity. But what if that identity is tied to a clock we can't see, changing its nature the moment we look away? Goodman's Grue Paradox, the color that changes at midnight. Imagine I introduce you to a new color called Grue. An object is Grue if it is observed to be green before midnight tonight, but blue if it is observed for the first time after midnight. Right now, every green leaf you see in the forest, every blade of grass, and every emerald fits the definition of Grue perfectly. So here is the question that haunts philosophers. How do you know with absolute certainty that the leaf is green and not Grue? You have the exact same amount of evidence for both theories. This is Goodman's new riddle of induction. It sounds like a clever word game, but it strikes at the very heart of science and human reason. It shows that our laws of nature are not based on absolute proof, but on the massive assumption that the future will look like the past. We assume the sun will rise and the grass will stay green because they always have, but logic alone cannot prove that the rules won't change at midnight. It reveals that our world is built on a foundation of habit rather than a foundation of fact. This paradox invites a sense of cosmic humility. It reminds us that our understanding of the world is based on a habit of mind, a story we tell ourselves to feel safe in a universe that doesn't feel obligated to follow our linguistic rules. It asks us to look at the world with fresh, wonder-filled eyes, realizing that every moment of stability, every color that stays true, and every sunrise that follows the night is a quiet, unproven miracle. The world is not green because it has to be. It is green because it chooses to be, one moment at a time. If our colors and our laws can change with the ticking of a clock, what does that say about our very existence? What if we are not the long-lived, evolving beings we think we are, but a sudden, beautiful accident of heat and entropy, born for a single second in the cold, silent vacuum of space? The Littlewood Paradox, the vase that stayed empty forever. Imagine a vase that is infinitely large. At 1 minute before noon, you put 10 numbered balls into the vase and take out ball number 1. At 30 seconds before noon, you put in 10 more balls, 11 through 20, and take out ball number 2. At 15 seconds, you put in 10 more and take out ball number 3. You continue this super task, accelerating your speed as you approach noon. By the time the clock strikes 12, you have added an infinite number of balls to the vase. But you have also removed every single ball, one by one. How many balls are in the vase at noon? Mathematically, the answer is 0. The vase is empty. This is the Littlewood Paradox, and it defies our every intuition about growth and accumulation. It shows that in the realm of the infinite, you can add more than you take away at every single step, and yet still end up with nothing. It is a chilling metaphor for the Jevons Paradox and our modern obsession with more. We spend our lives adding balls to the vase of our achievements, our tasks, and our possessions, only to find that the speed of our lives eventually empties the container. This paradox asks us to consider what we are truly filling our lives with. If the end result of an infinite pursuit is an empty vase, then perhaps the value was never in the number of balls we collected, but in the act of the game itself. It suggests that the final silence is not a void to be feared, but a natural conclusion to a task that was always more about the movement than the storage. It invites us to slow down, to stop the super task, and to realize that a vase with 3 balls we can actually touch is worth more than a vase with an infinite number of balls we are forced to throw away. This void in the vase reflects the void we feel when we look at the stars. We expect the universe to be a crowded room, full of life and noise, but the math tells us one thing while our experience tells us another, leaving us to wonder if we are the only ones left to hear the silence. Black hole paradox, the information that fell into a black hole. Imagine you take a handwritten diary containing every secret, every memory, and every dream of your life, and you toss it into a black hole. According to the laws of gravity, that diary is gone forever, crushed into a point of infinite density. But according to the laws of quantum mechanics, information can never be truly destroyed. It is the DNA of reality. If the black hole eventually evaporates and disappears, as Stephen Hawking predicted, what happened to the information in your diary? Was it erased from the universe, or is it hidden somewhere we can't see? This is the black hole information paradox, and it represents a war between our two greatest theories of how the world works. If information can be destroyed, then the past can be literally erased, and the laws of physics become meaningless. But if it survives, how does it escape a place from which even light cannot flee? Some scientists suggest the information is smeared across the surface of the black hole like a cosmic hologram, implying that our entire three-dimensional world might actually be a 2D projection on the edge of the universe. This paradox forces us to reconsider the permanence of our lives and our actions. We feel that our stories are etched into the timeline of the universe, but the black hole whispers that reality might be much more fragile or much more interconnected than we ever dared to dream. It reminds us that even in the deepest darkness, the story of what happened is never truly lost. It is simply translated into a language we are still learning to read. You are not just a person in the world. You are a piece of indestructible information in a universe that never forgets. This idea of hidden, indestructible connections leads us away from the abyss of a black hole and into the strange, telepathic world of quantum entanglement, where two objects can mirror each other's souls across the void of space. EPR Paradox, the particles that spoke across the galaxy. Imagine two entangled coins. You keep one on Earth and you send the other to a traveler at the very edge of the Milky Way. In the strange world of quantum physics, these coins don't have a fixed state until you look at them. They are both heads and tails at the same time. But the moment you flip your coin on Earth and see heads, the coin on the other side of the galaxy instantly becomes tails. They react faster than the speed of light, bypassing the laws of time and space, as if they are whispering to each other across the cosmic void. Albert Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance, and it forms the basis of the EPR paradox. It suggests that the universe is not local, that things can be deeply connected in ways that don't require physical contact or signals. It challenges our common-sense belief that an object here cannot be affected by something happening way over there. It reveals that at the most fundamental level, the universe is a single, unified whole where separation is just a persistent illusion of our limited perspective. This paradox suggests that you are never truly as isolated as you feel. Just as the entangled particles are part of a single, invisible system, perhaps we are all entangled with the people we love, the places we've been, and the stars we gaze upon. It invites us to see our lives not as isolated dots on a map, but as part of a vast, shimmering web where every action, every thought, and every breath ripples out into the infinite, touching corners of reality we can't even see. If particles can communicate across the stars, it makes us wonder if the entire universe is simply waiting for us to notice it. We look out at the vastness and wonder why it feels so empty, yet the very act of looking might be what brings the world into focus, or reveals that our own minds are the strangest paradox of all. Boltzmann Brain, the mind that existed for a second. In the vast, staggering timeline of an infinite universe, a terrifying mathematical truth emerges. It is statistically more likely for a single, fully formed human brain to spontaneously materialize in the cold vacuum of space, complete with false memories of a life, a family, and a world, due to a random fluctuation of atoms, than it is for an entire, complex civilization like ours to evolve over billions of years. This Boltzmann brain would wake up for 1 second, remember the smell of rain and the sound of a loved one's voice, and then vanish as the vacuum claims it. How do you know you aren't that brain? How do you know that the memories of the childhood you cherish, or even the last 10 minutes of this script, weren't just popped into existence a millisecond ago by the chaotic dance of entropy? This is the ultimate identity mystery. It suggests that our sense of history, our ship of Theseus continuity, and our very self might be a beautiful, fleeting hallucination created by the random heat of the cosmos. But rather than being a source of terror, this paradox can be a source of profound, grounding presence. If all you truly have is this single second of consciousness, if you are a swampman born of stardust, then this second is the most important thing in the entire universe. It strips away the heavy baggage of a past you can't change and the crushing anxiety of a future you can't predict. It leaves you with the raw, glowing, undeniable fact of your own existence, right here, right now. In a universe of infinite chaos, the fact that you can think at all is a miracle that justifies itself. As we reach the final loop of our journey, we find ourselves back where we started, at the edge of a blank page. We have explored the galaxy, the atom, and the vacuum of space.